We're live.
Hey,
How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm well.
Good, good.
How was the latter part of your holiday weekend?
Really good, actually. I can't believe it's already Sunday, but it was a really nice, relaxing time that we had with
Yeah,
my family. So it was much
that's
needed.
good.
Yeah, it was really good. Here, let me turn on my other light too. How about you guys?
Yep. Hey, good. We did good. Hey, I want to say hi to some folks. Jan, Carol, Kara, Harold, Elizabeth, Robbie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Deborah J, welcome. Hey, nice to have you. Alice, Ron Miller, Robin JP, Gayla, Matt, Beverly, Don, VAH from Annika. Hi. Sandra, Nunn. I like that. Terry Paulson joined. Jean LB, Angie, Candace, hello, and goodbye November, right, Candace? Absolutely. Alchemy joined also, and Sunny, Carol, and got to look over a little bit there because my camera's blocking it, but it's MVG, Levy, or Levy, is that it? And Jean, and Worried Mama. All right, well, Worried Mama, we're going to try to unworry you a little bit here today. I hope. I don't know if we can, but we'll maybe give it a shot. And so yeah, I would say today today just I was up super, either way you want to look at it, either super early or
You're super late.
way late last night. Anyway, it was a crossover, one of those where I didn't go to sleep very much, and then I because I was working on some stuff for the Lift Up Democracy thing, and then I also had just a ton of writing I have to get done, and while I was at that, I completely screwed up my normal routine, I guess you'd call it. So
Oh,
yeah, I ended up and my wife my wife came over and she's like, "Do you want to go out to eat?" And I'm like, "Was it breakfast, lunch, or dinner? I don't even remember at this point." It was yeah, quite the moment to realize it had already been noon had passed and coming home.
yeah.
So we
It's like once your
yeah,
sleep schedule gets changed, everything could get disrupted.
yeah, and I'm normally, like for those of you that hear from me at weird hours of the day or whatever, you see stuff that comes online. I work at night by choice because I did it, number one, for several years in a row for a client, and then number two because I had with that habit, it just was so hard to break it once it set in. It's just like one of those things where you go, it's locked. So
Yeah.
trying to get up earlier or later just gets to be, or I should say just later, gets to be a little nuts. Now, those of you that have worked third shift know exactly probably what I'm talking about, because night is not when you expect it. Day is not. It just is. It's just weird. So
Yeah. I could
anyway,
imagine.
yeah. So yeah, we've got plenty of
Yeah.
talked about today, and some things I hope we'll be able to cover on the show. I noticed today one of the big print articles. I'm just pulling this up because I just rebooted my computer, so bear with me for one
Of
quick
course.
second. But the um, the headlines that I saw that came up kind of blew my mind. They were wrong document. There we go. All right. Yeah, it was around and this was more of a I think Washington Post feature
Hmm.
on Texas, so we'll talk about that.
Hmm.
That's how he's bowing basically to Trump at this point. It's the capitulation story that has people worried. Mark Kelly's in on that, et cetera, et
Yep.
cetera. So, and then after that, we've got some reactions about that as to the illegality of everything that's happening, that Hegseth is doing, not only with Mark Kelly and the don't follow illegal orders thing and the rest of them. There's also a lot of the questions about the boat sinkings in Venezuela, because they got a lot more insidious than what I mean, they were awful to start with, but I think
Right.
when you hear some of these headlines, if you haven't already, folks, that they will definitely, but it will just be like that. That is not our military doing that. You'll be, and as I don't know what the word,
I
disappointed
was
and
just yeah, because I was just listening
revolted.
to I actually It
Hey,
was a
Rouster.
content creator from TikTok or something like that, and his wife is in the military, a major in the Marine Corps. He's a lawyer and
Yeah.
also did law in the military, and also was in Navy. He's a Navy SEAL as well.
Oh my
And
gosh. Wow.
he was actually going through, I mean, he was really on one because he said it's not only Hegseth that is implicated here for war crimes, but also the team that
Yeah.
executed those orders.
Yep. Yep.
Because, yes, and then he, of course, referenced Mark Kelly. He's like, this is exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
These orders with the boat strikes is exactly what they're talking about.
Right.
Oh my God.
There's no way. I mean, when we get into that, I think it'll be a little bit thing, but then a
Yes.
little bit of a, and I think VAH, you're a veteran and you're appalled, and I can't
Oh.
imagine how any service member can look at this situation and feel anything but disgust at what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we could talk about that, or we will talk about that, and then kind of the other article I wanted to talk about is on a central theme that we use in the talk frequently about in this show, which is cost of living. It's very down to earth.
Yes.
How do you live day to day type of things? And there was a good article in the New York Times and a couple of other places that followed up on that subject about the cost of living and why dropping prices might not be what we all think we want, and even though
Mm-hmm.
we say that's what we want, right? So it's actually kind of an interesting system that we can talk about there. But the first thing I think goes to some stuff we transacted on earlier in the day, which was around this discussion about the Democratic Party, the the left side of the Democratic Party, and there is one, and I'll show that the right side, also, and the more centrist side is the more
Mm-hmm.
proper term, and then the people that are kind of split down the middle. And I'll just kick it off with one comment before I turn it to you, Lisa, and
Sure.
that is that I watched a very in-depth. I watched a couple of in-depth interviews with Pete Buttigieg and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of other folks who have talked about the state of the Democratic Party, including Heather Cox Richardson, who I always plug her. If you don't know who she is, she goes by
I love
HCR
her.
Stack. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
we're big fans.
check her out. We love her. She's a doctorate in history, and I
Mm-hmm.
think also political science and philosophy. So she really knows her stuff, and she can keep you very informed on things, which we like to do here too, right? But in all of it, it was around, there's been a long conversation going. This didn't just start with the loss of the election in 2024. This has been going back to before Biden, before and while Obama was around. And it really stems down to how far do we let in, so to speak? When I listen to Ken Martin talking about it, how far do we let in people who are in the party that are representing very far left
Mm-hmm.
interests that are perhaps uh, not helpful in gaining traction among more just, I'll call it the majority, that middle 50-70%, right? So what I mean by that, I'll get down to brass tacks, is I'm not advocating anything here. I'm just explaining the dynamics, which is on the left, you've got woke, what people call woke, which has
Right.
gotten implicated into that LGBTQIA plus, and there have been a number of other things which the Republicans have seized upon and characterize the entire Democratic Party, which is, of course, not the truth, to be all in on. In other words, we're all, if everybody's in on one thing, if one person is in on one thing, we're all in on it, and that really isn't the case. Ken Martin talks this speech he gives that it's kind of a canned response, and I'm not a big fan of Ken Martin, in case you
I
hadn't
know.
picked but he gives this speech about the tent, right? He says we have to have a big tent, and
Mm-hmm.
we have to have a tent that lets people in, and I'm fine with that. I really, I'm a-okay with all of the
Right.
tents in the world being gigantic until we get to the point where we've got people inside the tent that don't recognize each other, and where the divergence of views is so far apart that, and I'll talk about this with some slides in a minute, but I kind of wanted to say that the tent maybe needs to be revisited. That conversation needs to be held again, and I think we maybe need to have it here in one way. And
Mm,
really, as we go down through this, if you can, if you do like what we're saying, great. We really love the heart smash. But also, if you don't, or you disagree, or you have another alternate opinion, by all means, please leave a comment. So as it
yes.
goes by, if we don't catch it right in the moment, um, you know, uh, we will, and we'll do our best to come back to it and talk about it. So that's
Yes.
kind of our MO here, right? So Lisa, what
Absolutely.
were your thoughts on some of this stuff?
So interesting that you set it up beautifully, especially with the woke comment, because what we were discussing earlier was a lot of people on the left really running around with their hair on fire because of James Carville.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he's already a polarizing figure. I find him hilarious, but people already feel, you know what I mean? He just
Oh,
has
I
that type of
and
personality, right?
yep,
Now, see, this is the issue that I have, and this is what I have been working through in my mind of, because you know how I am obsessed with how we got here and connecting all of the dots from the past all the way through to today, and there are
yes,
connections and they're
yeah,
all valid. And okay, so there's that. Put that on the side. But in terms of one of the threads of this is the fuel that the right always uses, and we know what their MO is. We know the way that they want to distort and shape narratives, and they always do that by playing offense. And with
that's
this
true.
woke narrative, right? Like the woke narrative. Now, the thing is, like the whole woke situation has been bastardized because of them,
Yeah,
because of the right, because it never meant what it means now or what people think it means. It literally was just being aware,
right.
keeping your eyes open, like looking beneath things, and this is a term that has been here. I mean, I'm sure most of the people in our audience probably know that we're preaching to the choir, but like I always say, my hope is maybe somebody at some point comes across this transmission, and these
Yeah,
are, like views that they never heard or points that they never heard. And that would be awesome, because that's talking about people to bring into the tent. That would be nice if you bring some
that's right.
rational people
Yeah,
you could
and I
actually have a
think,
conversation with.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I really
Yeah.
think that there's I want to punch home a point you just made to the
Yeah.
audience, to our audience, which is, we aren't here. If you and you're watching and you're thinking, wow, I like this, or this is a good vibe, and I like the way these guys are going at it. One of the things that I talk about in writing articles, which I haven't done as much of lately, usually is the idea that we are not we're not Democrats here per
Right.
se. We're not necessarily, or nor are we centrist, nor are we right leaning. We
Progressive, I
are
would
we
say.
are what we are, right, as
Yeah.
people. And the
Hmm.
government is, I will never, I just got to interject this, I will never entrust my well-being to, after this many years in this earth, to a government
Right.
to ensure that for my survival, right? I absolutely believe I'm accountable to me to make sure I do whatever it is necessary to make sure I can get through life. I can do things that I have to, but there are people out there who are disabled, uh,
Yes.
veterans disabled. There's a
It's a
lot of groups
necessity.
of people who need a lot more than I
Hmm.
do from the government. So I don't expect I say, come here, listen to us as an individual, regardless of what you're, you know, whether you're left or left center or left
Exactly.
or whatever. We're all in that.
We're
So I'll
all
shut
about
up
the
and let
discussion.
you go. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry
no,
for
no,
interrupting you,
no,
Lisa.
please. No, that was a really good point.
Yeah.
Now, my whole thing is, because some people might say, why do we care what the right is going to think or how they're going to react? But
This is a good one. Go for
yeah,
it.
And this is my whole thing is I think we need to keep in mind what they may use as fuel because
Mhm.
that's all they do and that's how they've dominated for 50 years. This is exactly what they've been. This has been their playbook and they have gotten incredibly talented at it. It's
Yep.
nuts. So now with this woke thing, specifically with James Carville, I was able to see the New York Post article, but it was actually the New York Times, I think, that where he wrote his opinion piece. And I
Yes.
didn't get to read that because I don't have a
The
subscription to
subscription.
the
I
New York
forgot
Times.
to gift
Yes.
link you that one. Darn it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I
so no,
will.
that's fine. Because then I'll read it. But I read like the, like the review, if you will, of that, like New York Post.
Hmm.
And
I
basically,
have
and
Robert Reich's video, by the way, queued up, ready for it anytime
great.
you want. Go ahead.
Great. And now, so this is the thing too, because I've listened not only Robert Reich, but also I've had a podcast. Jennifer Welch is very much into, um, we have to lean into woke even more.
Yeah.
Also, a new creator that I love, Wajahat Ali, and I'm going to send you
Yeah.
his Substack. You know him? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I've seen
The
him,
left
but
hook. Yeah.
yeah, the left hook. I actually just really, I sat down and I watched some of his videos this weekend, and I was like, oh my god, I love this guy. But he also said the same thing, like, no, we have to lean into woke more. But what I keep hearing from them and what they are equating as woke is simply just being accepting of immigrants and of minorities and LGBTQ
Yes.
plus. Okay, that is a given to me. As progressives, we're very accepting, and we
I think
advocate for
that's,
their rights, trans people, like, gay, lesbian, all that, right? Now
yeah.
they're equating it as simply that the right is anti-woke because of, because they're against these groups, but it's way more nuanced than that. And the
Yes, it
fuel
is.
that they use,
Keyword nuance. Yes. Let me
yes,
headline
then
that. Go ahead. Yeah.
yes, and the fuel that they used on the right is going with the trans kids in sports, the cultural stuff, like all of this
Right.
stuff with the immigration, all the lies. It's all lies, all like just completely muddying the waters and flooding the zone with this crap. And the reason, this is a perfect example. Jennifer Welch herself months ago was talking about, I've had it on their podcast, and she's
Yeah.
like, I just can't believe we're in Oklahoma and we have soccer moms that are worried about trans kids in sports. Because it's
Yeah.
such a low percentage of
Yeah.
athletes that are trans, and that this would even be a question for. But they
Right.
blew
Well,
it up as to be like, it's going to hit your local school. It
right.
is going to hit your kids. And that's the nefarious right wing distortions and the
Right.
fuel that they use, because then the left wing doesn't say, well, no, that is true. Instead of being, in my opinion, rational and being like, no, this is a low percentage of people that this affects. Let's
Yeah.
look at that. We're not talking about, just like in general, like it's going to overtake everybody. This is crazy. This is not
Yeah.
what's happening.
Let's talk about something too, because I think it's an important point to drive home. That I work off and you work off of data, right? We are
Right.
data driven people. We are not terribly emotional, especially when I don't think either one of us could be and afford to be too emotional without,
No.
because our faces are so up against the glass. We talk about almost every episode. It's like if I got tied up in every single story that comes out about right, left, whatever. So the data and facts here, the reason I bring it up is because this narrative of, oh my God, the world is going trans, everybody,
Yes.
6-year-olds are waking up, and if they have,
Yeah. They used it and
genital
they
A, they
ran with
want
it.
genital X, and no, that's not what's happening. And
Right.
statistically, it is such an infinitesimal, I mean infinitesimal part of the population that we're talking about here. I mean, it's unbelievably small,
Right.
and so the odds of anybody ever being in your local school system, let alone your local soccer team, let alone your lacrosse team, if
And
you have
that's
one,
what they
is
used to get
literally
to these people.
right. But if I stoke your fear, oh my God, they're coming, and they're bringing the surgical kit and the
That's
tent
right.
with them to do
It's
field surgery
crazy.
on these kids so they can convert them from boys to girls. Holy
It's
shit.
crazy. Yeah.
And when you listen to me say it like that, it's nuts. But if you listen to how they say it, it's kind of sort of like a side passing comment. And then by they, I'm talking Fox News. I've heard them do it.
Oh
I've
yeah.
listened to
Oh
them do
yeah.
it. in this panel, they get each other fired up in this little closed echo chamber ecosystem, and they say this stupid shit that gets everybody, that's watching it sort of, if they're not directly in, if they have no direct knowledge of the data, they would be like, oh, well, maybe this is coming. Maybe I do have
Right.
something to worry about. And again, I want to go back to the real problem. Let me get real quick on this. I just hit on this. The real problem that the concern I originated wasn't that trans kids were in sports. The why under that was that the trans kids had an unfair advantage if they were
Right.
boys becoming girls. That was the original concern. So let's hammer on that point when this comes up. First of all, it's an infinitesimal small number, and secondly, the concern is it making it less fair for your boy or girl to win? Otherwise, shut up. Nobody really.
Right.
This wasn't a
This is a
debate
totally
about
different conversation, right?
morality or anything
Yes.
else. It was a debate about unfairness on the
Right.
field. And
Right.
that
Right.
that that doesn't even come into play in 99.999% of all situations in schools, let alone
Yeah.
colleges, let alone professional athletes, so or Olympic level athletes.
Right. But
Go ahead.
then what also comes to that is it's not even just that trans. It could be just the entire woke, the cancel culture, the policing of
Yes.
thought. Me personally, other people have different opinions as to they feel that cancel culture needs to come back. There needs to be shame. There needs to be well, whatever it is. I'm not necessarily, we've talked about the free speech absolutism. Not
Yeah.
necessarily. I mean, again, it's all nuanced, right? But I do not like the policing of thought and dogpiling on people just because they have an opinion. I'm not saying
Yes.
like a Nick Fuentes that is a full blown Nazi and he, you know what I
Ah,
mean? Like
yeah.
advocates for and loves
Sorry.
Hitler and all this stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, people having a conversation
For
like we are
sure.
right now, right? So that is also what they used as fuel, the cancel culture. They're trying to silence you, freedom of speech, all of that stuff. So
Right.
my point is but the left kept doubling down on it and just
Right.
kept doubling down on it. Now, the reason why I'm saying all of this is because this to me is a major, major theme. And I also want to, a major theme for me and what I'm concerned with. And I
Mhm.
want to highlight one comment from Nora Sallows. Hi, Nora. She says, because I brought up Carville, Carville is old and out of touch. Kamala did not recognize the heavy resistance to the Gaza genocide, and she lost the young voters. Now, that's also nuanced to me because just because Carville is older does not mean that he does not have valid points. He obviously is a heavyweight and was for a reason.
Yeah.
And yes, he, like his heyday was in the 90s with Clinton and everything. Okay, we know that. But
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily that you should discount all of that because everything young is not all fantastic, because there's
That's
also, you know what
absolutely
I'm
true.
saying? Like,
Yes.
in my opinion, right?
There is
So,
utility and wisdom in age.
of course, of course. And also, not even only that, because even this whole thing with the Gaza stuff, me personally, I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. These single issue voters, in my opinion, that did this protest vote and lost Kamala, and now we're complaining. It's like, well, what did you think was going to happen if you didn't vote for Kamala?
Right, and
How did
it's
you
like their
think in what
brains only
world
saw
that
a
we would
certain
be better?
color
Yes,
band. It was
exactly.
like,
So that's just one thing.
it's like
But
color blindness.
exactly. So that is one issue. Now the other issue to me is in terms of voting patterns, and we always talk about pattern recognition, and
Right.
I've talked before about how America is an extremely reactionary country. It's
Yes.
very much, in my opinion, doesn't, and it could be because we're so young, we're only 250 years old, we don't foresee, people don't foresee, they get it, like there's this thing where it could even be American exceptionalism, where you
Yes.
almost like don't, like, I don't want to put that energy out there, that when people make that comment, I'm like, what do you mean put that energy out there? Like, this is my Italian coming out, like, you gotta like plan ahead and maybe see problems that could be happening in the future. So my opinion is that America is not that. It's very reactionary. And I heard this term
Fair.
recently. Oh, actually, it's Robert Reich. Actually, it might even be in the video that you said, where
Mhm.
it was a British politician, because I had to look up this quote. People don't vote to say thank you, they vote to say fuck you. So now, and the reason why I say that is because everybody keeps saying, well, look at what happened with Mamdani now. We're all going to be in a total socialist utopia now. See, look at what happened. The right is going to lose.
Well,
My concern is the pendulum will swing the other way, like it did after Obama. And then it swung again after Trump. And then we went all the way left. And then it swung. This is reactionary. So
and
that to
actually,
me
can I jump in with something
is
when you're
my
done with this point?
concern.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
My concern is it could herald something way worse, and I hope it doesn't. But if we don't get down to the nitty gritty of what the issues really are and get down to the truth of what the real issues are without these narratives and this arguing back and forth and getting into this like stupidity, really, of semantics
right.
and just all of that, it's just going to keep continuing this back and forth pendulum because Mamdani
So,
winning, yeah, that's awesome, but
yeah.
I don't think that means that we're in going to be progressive left forever and ever
Oh,
because of
no,
the wins that we just had. The
no.
wins that we just had, like you said, are in response to the Trump administration. Again,
Yeah,
the fuck you.
it was a massive victory, as I said
Yes.
in the last
Yes.
episode, I think maybe before that, that it was a massive victory on November 4th for the not Republicans or the not MAGA, right? See, it
One
was
more
not a
point.
for something, it was an against something.
Yes, one more point. The opposition party. I said to my sister because she was like, "I can't take this. I really
Sure.
can't take this." When they won and they got in office, she was like, "I can't
Wrapping
take
your
this."
head in
Everybody is
duct
like
tape, yeah.
having this honeymoon about Trump, and I'm like, "Give it several months. It's going to be over." Because, and I was like, "And you'll see how fun being the opposition party is."
Yeah.
When Biden was in office, who was the opposition party and was having a grand old time? The right.
Mhm.
You see, like, and every time whoever is in office right now, they're getting like beat up and bloodied because this is our pattern.
Right. And I will say this, I want to highlight something. So, I one of the areas I've specialized in from a history perspective in studies is the early American
Mm,
experience, right? So, what was it like to live as an American in the 1789, 1790, 1801, those years of the very, very foundation of the country? One of the things that was really a big deal was opposition. That Hamilton wrote in a book called it's a book now, but it's called the Federalist Papers.
hmm
It was a publication to New Yorkers. It was widely distributed. It contains most of what is to be considered the codex of thought around the founding of the country, because there were three authors in there. There was Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, and they all wrote and this is the first clue you should take away. They all wrote anonymously as using pseudonyms for their names, so they would not be publicly targeted. This is how bad it was. But let me go to
Mm,
the Hamilton comment in Federalist 10. And there he talks about the evil of factions and the fact that you have basically two things you can deal with. You can either deal with the cause of the faction or the result of the faction. And what it is, in other words, cause or effect, right?
right.
And he says that factions, which are now today in the 2025 vernacular, to use a big 25-cent word, in the way we speak right now, the vernacular of faction is called party, political
mm,
party. I want you guys to
mm,
remember that. If you ever have the chance to read Federalist 10, he goes into depth because he perceives all of the evils that are going to come out of even just having political parties, because you instantly adopt, if you have a positive polar thing, you're going to have a negative polar thing.
right.
Poles will switch. All sorts of badness will come out of this, and it is a huge deal, huge, that we chose right away. We looked at that Hamilton when he wrote it at Federalist 10 under the name Publicus. The New Yorkers are like, excuse my language here, fuck that. Essentially, they were like, we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. We're going to
Right.
form parties. We're going to form because individual action was not familiar to these people. The parties were. That was something that carried over in a way. It was a different language, but it was the same thing in function from Great Britain, from France, from those other places to hear from the immigrants that were white
Mm-hmm.
Caucasian people, not that was not from Africa, that's for sure, and through the slave trade. But okay, why am I going on about that? Well, because the evils of it were pointed out on prior to day one of us being operating as the United States, and then years later, fast forward 250 years later, here we are. Wow, eve of our 250th birthday, and we have got deep, deep, deep polarizing divisions. And I wanted to bring up and tie back to something else you
Mm-hmm.
said, which is we have not only deep, deep divisions, we have a cult, a full blown fucking cult that got
Yep.
born into existence. It was given birth, called MAGA, in the process of the 2016 2015 time era. And a lot of people bought into it because they were pissed about the way things were. They were pissed about black people. They were pissed about brown people. They didn't like
Mm-hmm.
all the Mexicans coming in, and they had a lot of grievances up their butts. And it's like, well, okay, instead of dealing with it like mature, intelligent, rational people, which now, by the way, I've now activated the response in the right when I say something like that, saying, "Well, you're a liberal elite." I want to tell you, I'm anything but fucking elite. I am about the scrappiest dog and the mangiest dog in the dog pound. You will never see anybody who's elite coming from this side of the screen, or I think your side of the screen
Right.
either. And but I want to go over to something you said, and it was that it was about Mamdani. And
Yeah.
well, there was also another huge election from a political perspective, so important, that it was in Seattle. And for our
Oh
viewers who
yeah.
might be out there, if you're in Seattle, you know that there's a whole new deal coming into town in January, right? And this is the area I'm focusing in on is homelessness. And in bringing up homelessness in Seattle, you might say, well, I don't give a shit. I don't live in Seattle, right? It is, again, it is the swing of a pendulum where people when I lived there had a real problem with the what they called the jungle, which was a place underneath the I-5 overpasses.
Mm.
If you are from or ever around there, you know what I'm talking about. It is a nightmare,
We had
but
the
to
same type of
drive
thing
it,
here in
but
Chicago.
underneath that's where they built these giant tent cities,
Mm.
and violence happened and bad things happened, and there
Yeah.
was a lot of drug use. So at that time, it was getting to be a on fire issue. Then I moved away, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years later, all of a sudden you've got a situation where it hasn't gotten any better. Now that now people, they find out almost 80% of the people in Seattle that are homeless because of cost of living, cost of
Mm-hmm.
home and housing, shelter. And so, but they can't fix the problem fast enough. So it was one thing in the previous administration, which was a policy of, let's mix a little bit more, enforcement and get these people away from, the main population, and definitely from the tourists that come into our town. And then every time you push on that side of the waterbed, the other side goes up because it's all water whooshy, right? And there, once you try to decentralize them, they scatter to other towns, and now you've got pissed off towns and satellite towns that are absorbing these people who now have no ability to handle it, right? So it's a huge problem, and it's what I call the classic waterbed thing. If you push down on it, back in
Mm-hmm.
living in the days of waterbeds, if you push down on one side, the other one went up. And the idea is, if you then you flip and reversed and push down the other side, the one that you pushed there was always a cause effect. There was always a balance problem. And so now this new administration that's coming into power is going to try to do a 360 wraparound type of approach, where there will be, at least from what I read, there's the idea of they will have prevention to stop the homelessness from happening, but at the same time they will also have the housing available, and it's like the come back from homeless state process figured out, so that there's better
Mm-hmm.
results. But you still run into the problem that they have not. A key issue that never got resolved fully was what's called NIMBY, which is not in my backyard, NIMBY. They don't want homeless people living near most people's properties because that affects their property value and affects their sense of what? Exceptionalism and safety.
Right.
Okay, so there we are,
Right.
right?
Right.
When I lived in Seattle, I will tell you the total number of break-ins over the course of the 6 or 7 years we were there. I had 4 car break-ins in a locked garage.
Oh man.
My wife went into a Starbucks and somebody punched through her locked driver's side car to get her purse and took it.
Oh
And
my God.
she had 2 other instances of that. So there's a lot of things that were not right in Seattle, and they were trying to fix it. It's the same thing with the homeless deal. So I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to bring the Seattle picture in because I live there. Number one, number two, I think we have some folks in the audience who are there. And number three, it's like it's a problematic universal thing, and
Right.
yet anything the Republicans can do to change the fucking narrative or the problems they haven't
Yes.
solved, they will go and do
Exactly.
it. And that's where your message comes in right full gear, because you are hitting it dead on with a hammer and a nail in the bullseye, because it really is, to me, so much about the spin game we've got going on all the time, and the opposition party that is always trying to figure out how to
Yes.
overload you with bullshit. That
And
and
then, not only that,
Yeah,
even the people that you talk to in real life that are on the other side, that listen to those talking points, they spout those same talking points to you, and they really
yeah,
believe that narrative then of the
yeah,
way that it was, cooked up for them and
right.
fashioned for them. It's ridiculous. And they don't believe. See, now we're in a situation because it's a cult, like you said,
Mhm.
that you can't even reason with these people, because we talked about this in the last live that we had,
Gone. Yeah,
they have a different set of facts. They're not even the facts, but
right.
they think they're the facts, and they think that we have the wrong facts.
Yep.
It's
And
my
and
God.
there, I think my response then and now is the same, which is, we all, there was a comedian who said this, that I love this phrase, and I apologize for the vulgarity, but he said, everybody these days has got the entire world worth of knowledge 6 inches away from their asshole at all times, because they put their phones in their back pocket.
Right.
If you just whip it out, you can look up on your phone, you can know just about anything. If you
Right.
install Grok or ChatGPT or whatever the hell you want to use, plus Google alone, you can find anything out. There is no lack of information, and there's no, actually, if you look at it really rationally and in a logical way, there's no real reason to have two separate sets of facts. There just isn't. It's what you choose to believe out of the sea of information that's coming in.
Yes.
There's a difference between information, a sea of information, and facts. Facts are a
Yeah.
separate thing.
Right.
Information is, I read so much shit on X every day that is just
Oh.
mind-bendingly stupid. It really is. And I want to reach through my monitor some days. It's a miracle this poor monitor over here doesn't have a hole right through it, because I javelined it with something from across the room, because it's infuriating to
Yeah,
watch
it
people
is.
confused. We talk about Hegseth, a little bit in this
Yeah.
thing. There's so much just disinformation. It is information that is actively targeted to make you think something wrong. I mean, something
Right.
you think is right, but is actually
Correct.
diametrically opposed to the truth. And I cannot stand that.
Yes.
It's a huge thing.
And there's always an argument. There's always, because like I said, the right has had decades to perfect this, where
Yeah,
it's like, oh, well, crime in Chicago is down, and
right.
it has been going down exponentially. Oh, well, that's because, people are not reporting crimes now. And I'm like,
Yeah,
why wouldn't they be
sure.
reporting crimes? So there's always
Oh, and
something. There's
and
always some.
the
It's
latest is
infuriating.
Caroline Levitt has said that it was the Democrats' fault, that the Democrats broke the whole entire government's reporting systems. What
Oh,
the fuck are you
what?
talking about? She
Oh, I
went
didn't
with
hear
that
that.
line. She went with that line that Joe Biden was the reason why our labor report was fucked up the last time.
Oh, hell
That's
no.
all. That's all. And oh, by the way, it's not just that. It's so bad. We aren't going to be able to publish statistics about the government anymore, because probably we've just been listening to the wrong thing for years now, and we probably never will get it back. And
I thought
that
you guys were
that
supposed to be so awesome and be able to fix everything in 24 hours.
well, now we're grasping for the same javelin type thing to
Yes.
throw back at that bullshit, because that is a steaming pile of
Wow.
bullshit to be said,
Wow.
in the from the press secretary of the White House, right? So I but it was, she had the balls to look into the camera. They must have clanked when she walked up on that podium, because they were gigantic, and she said it with a completely straight face. I don't want that woman anywhere near a camera for the next 70 years if we elect Democrats into office in 2028. My God.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
Yeah, I can't. I don't
exhausting.
even know how that lady sleeps at night.
I,
Seriously,
I,
I,
I
I
don't
don't.
know how
I
she
couldn't do it.
breathes. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
she's,
Do you
she
have that Robert
slithers.
Reich clip?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's
because
talk
that was the
about
one.
that.
Just yeah, yes, please.
So we have a video from Robert Reich, who has a really a good point of view. And there's a show he does. I think it's on Saturday. It's called The Coffee Klatch, with
Yeah.
a woman whose name I know, but it's just escaped my thought memory. So anyway, she does it. The two of them do it together, and she's in it.
Yes.
You'll see it. You'll see her. But they're talking about exactly what we've been talking about here, only transferred to something called economic populism, which is what
Correct.
I think is the kind of big deal here. It's a clip. It's about a
Thank you.
minute and a half. We'll talk through. We'll let it play through, but
Hmm.
we'll also talk while it's running. Is that cool? All right. So let's hit it and see, what time are we at. Oh wow, boy, time flies when we're having so much
I
fun here.
With
know.
woke
I
and
know.
with economic populism. Like it's this zero sum game of the two, but you've really talked about cultural populism. It's not stop being woke. It's let's go for social justice and let's hammer home on the economic populism. That's what people,
Yes.
in terms of election messaging.
They go
Right.
together, social justice and economic populism. What we're really talking about is we don't want to be totally dominated by a small cabal at the top. American democracy and the economy, neither can respond very well to the
Yes.
needs of America if we have a small group of people running the country. You know, at the end of the
And look
first
what's
Gilded
happening.
Age, you've probably
Hmm.
heard me say this again and again, and I apologize. At the end of the first Gilded Age, there was a justice, former justice of the Supreme Court, Louis Brandeis, who's reputed to have said, America faces a choice. We can either have great wealth in the hands of a few people, or we can have a democracy. But we can't have both. And that was
Right.
profoundly correct. It was
Hmm.
correct at the end of the first Gilded Age. It's correct now that we're in the second Gilded Age under Donald J. Trump.
So how do you, there you go, Lisa. That's the
Yes.
that's
And that's the
the
thing with Robert Reich, right? I agree with him that I believe that economic populism and social justice does go together. Absolutely.
right.
But the thing is with Carville, because he's so like brash and belligerent and just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? He's abrasive, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when he's
that's a
talking
good
about
word.
stop being woke, I don't think he means this is my issue is that I feel like the left wing people are like, well, no, of course we're not going to stop being woke. We're not going to abandon immigrants. We're not going to abandon minorities. We're not going to abandon LGBTQ. And I'm like, that I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's talking about the cancel culture stuff. That's what I take it from with
Right.
that, like going too far, too ridiculous, like not because this is another thing too that I am infuriated that the right has done. It has taken things that we legitimately advocate for, serious things that we advocate for, and have turned them into like a meme, this woke thing of the
Yes.
social justice blue-haired screaming and yelling liberal about their avocado toast.
Right.
That's what the right did, and I think it's infuriating. So now anybody that thinks about a liberal think that everything that they fight for is frivolous because their concerns don't exist. Like
Right.
you see what I mean? So that's the thing that really grates on my nerves. So now, and it's like, and I'm like, and they're doing it again, and they're doing it again, the left,
So
where they're
so
not really
yes.
listening to
Right. And
what is being said.
I have a couple slides I want to interject. This might be a good time for this,
Yes.
because because what I wanted to illustrate in the upcoming things I'm going to show you are really the major and serious structural problems that are in the Democratic Party, to a point I'm going to put out there that I believe are beyond repair to a sense. So there's certain times when you do apply the CPR and the defibrillator to a patient, and there's times when it's too late. And I think we've gotten to a point where it's a house needs to come down, and let's just start rebuilding afresh, anew. And in doing so, we get to an important position. One of them is, several of them actually. One of them is, we get the opportunity to set the frame for the discussions with the right, and instead of trying to continuously capitulate and respond to accusations and so forth. We need to draw a very, and I want to friends in the show who are listening, I want you to understand something about the evolution of our government, where we are in an arc, right? So in this arc, we started with a government at the federal level that was designed to do basically two things. One was manage the rule of law, and two was manage the economic relations between the states and between other countries, and three was to deal with interstate issues, right? Over time, by the time World War II occurred, there was a deep need for the business of government to fundamentally adapt. And that adaptation, I mean, there was also the first Gilded Age. I could talk through this whole thing, but let me just cut to the chase here, which is the government had to have a plan and a program to handle the people who were reaching retirement age, or who had lost their jobs, or who needed medical care and insurance after they quit working. And those three things drove a huge addition. It was like building an entirely new wing into our government that didn't exist before. And it took over responsibilities that it never had before. And now we have gotten so far away from the inception date of that addition, right? From the date it came to be, that we've kind of forgotten that isn't what we've always done. And so picking what Democratic Party wants, what fights we want to choose, is really always a choice for us. Because if we want to take on all aspects of your human lives on the other end of this discussion and listening to us right now, that's a lot. That is a lot. If for everything we sign up for in government to do for us, it is an addition that is not going to probably work well. It's probably not going to be efficient or initially scale well. And it's going to take years to work all of the bumps out. And that's how government gets shit done. And it's how it's happening now. So when we go back and we say, well, Social Security, when Trump showed up and, with his can of gasoline and pack of matches, it's a burn everything down. He was doing some departments that were very, very, very narrowly banded a favor, probably. He was also doing extreme harm to our national and international reputation, not just reputation, but just the receipt of services, for Christ's sakes. If you're at Social Security and your wait times are high, you know why? It's because there's a whole lot less people dealing with it. Same thing with NASA, same thing with the FBI, same thing with the DOJ. But more than that, then he went on to turn it into his own little populace of these are extensions of my government. I'm the king, and the DOJ is my legal entity, and it's my fighting force for retribution. And so we got so if you have to take all that into kind of a swing of account that says we started in one place with economics and defense of the nation and a rule of law, we moved on to add a whole wing of social contracts to it, and then we are now here, and we have a complicated government when you get right down to it, right? And the conversation has to be led by the Democrats, because the only thing the conservatives are fucking good at is throwing barbs at whatever the Democrats come up with.
That's
because by definition, a progressive is someone who iterates on solutions. In other words,
Mhm.
that means today it's this good. I have a gray scale between black and white. It is not just bad or white. Black or white is not just bad or good. It is shades in between. Progress is progress, progressive progress, one step
Mhm.
at a time, right? And so we look for improvement, whereas the conservatives look backwards and they look at black and white. Well, we knew this thing worked. They make unfair comparisons through time backwards, like as if there was a government in 1776 or 1789, I'm sorry, that dealt with social issues. The government didn't fucking have social issues on its plate in 1789.
Which is why Nick Perro says we should call them the Regressive Party
Yeah,
instead of just the
that's a
Republican
great
Party.
that's a great
Yeah.
thing. So in my rant here, I want to get to the real meat of it, which says if we look at kind of how you got Carville, right, that is sitting
Mhm.
there with his crazy donkey, and then you've got this, which is you've got this Democrats' big tent problem, right? And I call about
Yeah.
it. There's this would be under normal circumstances a Venn diagram, which should overlay
Mhm.
each other, where if everything from the way left to the moderate centrist, we all have kind of a happy meeting place in the middle. And I'm going to tell you right away, such a thing does not exist today at all in the Democratic Party. There are maybe a handful of people, excuse me,
I
who
love that. You have it way left.
right, and that's your woke,
Yes.
we're gonna drag every issue under the sun into the
Right.
tent, and we're gonna talk about every single thing. Well, what does that do? That paints every issue on your back as a target for a political
Right.
party. Now, let me cut the bullshit. The one thing I'm trying to do underneath all of this is figure out how to win fucking elections in
Mhm.
2026. It is
That's
that
right.
practical, and do it with progressives and democratic socialists, because those
Mhm.
and those people running alongside and or within the Democratic Party, that is my ideal happy place, and there's a reason for it. I don't necessarily want them married to or changing ideologies or doing whatever into the Democratic Party, because I don't think that's worth doing. I think it's easier to run because the legal complexity of standing up a new party in this country, we over engineered the shit out of it. If you haven't checked it out, just Google it. It is incredibly fucking hard to start a new party in
I
American
know.
politics. It is a 20-year process. Okay, so anybody that tells you that we should do that is talking out of their ass without the research. They don't have the data, because if you knew how many signatures, if you knew how much money, if you knew how many local and because elections are handled by the states, how many local and state laws you would have to deal with in order to do that, it's an almost insurmountable task. Is it impossible? No. Is it practical? Absolutely not. So
Mhm.
back to this picture, it shows you we need to, if we're all spread out all over the place like this shows you, there is a very hard time to be had
Yeah.
having a focused conversation on a limited number of issues. We've got to pick our fight. We've got to say, this is what 2026 matters. This is what is important to 2026. Otherwise, if you are on the right and you are throwing darts at us about being woke or this or that, we no habla it. We do not speak it. We don't even acknowledge it. We're not going to engage with you on that conversation, because that's not why and
Mhm.
how we're going to win the elections at the local, state, and federal level, because all 435 seats are up for re-election in 2026. We're not going to win in that if we are spread thin. We can't. It's just a simple matter of physics. You cannot do it. So that leads me to my next brilliant slide, which took hours to create, and that is a big X. No, it doesn't work, right? So what do we have there beyond that? What is the response? We have super left words that they use: woke, hypersensitive to inclusive. Government does
Mm.
everything for everybody. In the right, to the centrist, which moves towards that, it's appeasement, it's a consensus, and it's agreement. That's not a great idea, and that's not a great language to use either, because when you start doing that, you blur, you create a what is it? You create the Burger King of politics. You create the Whopper your way, and that is not how politics works. You cannot have some policies coexisting with contradictory policies. I'm not saying nothing that no things work together. Of course not. Some things do work together, but you can't sort of pick this one and leave that one there. If you start getting into that game, then it becomes very, very, very tenuous and risky. And again, you start spreading yourself very thin, because it's like, well, if you're arguing about it for the left, why not just argue a little bit about it for more of the right? Oh, yeah, well, okay. And it gets weak. So you got to draw your battle line between your opponent. And that's where it gets to the center, which is what Reich was talking about, which is populist economics, populist justice, right? It's an important thing, because it comes back to you, friends. It is all about you and me. And it is not about doing things that benefit oligarchs. It is not about doing things that benefit shitheads like Trump, or billionaires like Jeff Bezos, who the guy sold books online, for fuck's sake. They built it into an empire by doing something called commoditizing the streaming process through it. We have to do kind of the same simplification of knowing that where our strengths are in the middle is what's going to win elections, versus trying to be all over the map. And I think that sits with what you were saying, Lisa, right? And I'm hoping I'm hitting home on this thing a little bit with you too, that it is.
I think you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it is an important idea that when you spread thin, you are very susceptible to damage. We, as Democrats or progressives or democratic socialists, all of us that are in these boats are going, whoa, we're getting a little too far apart from each other. It's hard to tell where the edge of the fleet is, and we need to kind of huddle up and shrink that tent and start getting out of the conversations that we don't need to have right now. I'm not saying we should never debate policy, for fuck's sake. No, that's stupid. I'm saying right now we have a job to do. So I would ask you to all join that thought process with me, where you'll see things happening here that we're trying to do to do exactly that, to get writers focused on candidates for 2026, candidate platforms with fresh ideas for 2026, and absolutely all about getting those seats flipped in the Congress so we get it back for 2026, and we can shut down and slow down the bullshit going on in the executive branch and the judicial branch of this current administration and government. So that's kind of the thought, right? And I'll
absolutely
come back to full screen now, but
well, the thing is too, I think that was great. I love those diagrams. I'm going to screenshot them, especially the last one that you had, because what you have in the middle there, it's the progressives though, because the centrists that you had on the right, that's what people would call the moderates, right? Like that's what, and people are like, I was talking about Jennifer Welch is like, oh, the moderate, she's so anti-moderate. And I get it, I understand, but at the same time, I feel like we just keep getting painted into a corner by the right, and then we're always playing defense about the way they define what our movement means.
And that's what I was talking about, like by saying, LGBTQIA plus everything.
It drives me nuts.
You've got to absolutely just refuse to engage. And I'm so with you, Lisa, on that. That it is like, oh, I don't speak that anymore. I'm not that. I don't have an opinion on that, because that's not part of what I don't have an opinion to argue with you over.
My thing is
winger.
A very firm, like, no, you just completely misconstrued and conflated that whole thing. You have been right from day one, or wrong from day one. Like Wajahat Ali was saying, and he was like, we're not going to abandon woke. Like, you can't abandon woke. And I was like, but now you're also conflating and now using woke as just to mean what our core issues are. The right is not defining it that way, and this is what people are falling for. That's the problem. That's what needs to be quashed.
Yeah.
I'm talking quashed and completely like disintegrated and destroyed, because
Right.
that is what our problem is,
Send it
my
out the
opinion.
airlock.
Yeah. And yes, exactly. And why the pendulum keeps swinging this way back and forth, and why we have become even more reactionary than we used to be. The country
Yeah.
never used to be like this. I mean, I know it was before my time, because by the time Reagan came, I think it was very polarized by then. But from what I understand and what I hear from the people that lived through those times before, like the 50s and the 60s, the country was not like this at all.
Right. And yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head. There's a linguistic part to this. There's like, how do I define the language that I'm using to
Yeah.
talk about things? And I think we radically have allowed a spread of terms to occur. And the Republicans egg us on in some ways. They're like, they know we're susceptible to this because we like to
Yeah.
talk, and we like to explain, and we like to debate. And when you have an open-minded crew of people together, whether you're at the coffee shop, the bar, the workplace, wherever you talk, holy shit, that's where the spread starts to happen. The
Right.
wording can, today it means this, tomorrow it's this, tomorrow this, and it just it starts to get all over the place. And the guy that you were talking about, Carville, he has,
Yeah.
he's got a lot of great opinions, but there's a phrase that I use. It was part of one of my one of the cultures I worked in that had a very strong culture. It was called, and the founder had it quoted, and that was everybody. And if you buy his book today, his name was Ray Dalio, and the place is Bridgewater, but he wrote a book called Principles, and in it he says there's an opinion. If you read it as the book says it, when he wrote it for the book, it says everybody has an opinion. And be careful about that, because everybody's opinion is not in sync, and that's the big deal. If you
Right.
work there, you got a different version of that particular principle, which is language warning. Fair notice. The way Ray would say it is, everybody's got a fucking opinion, and he was like, he couldn't stand it, because he thought, you know what, people do, and
Yeah.
if you are not, there's a part that he bolts on to the end of it, which is, if you're believable in what you're saying, then your opinion has merit and weight. If you're not believable, if you just pull it out of your ass and you start talking with your opinion, it doesn't work, guys. It just doesn't work. So my encouragement to people when we're having conversations outside of this group
Right.
and this community is to assess. I mean, I just stop for a minute and ask yourself, is this person I'm talking to believable on this subject? Because if they are not, it is really, regardless of what their political affiliation is, regardless, whatever, what do you know about how well believable they are, and question it, and like I said to you earlier today, or texted you back, was it's always a question of a drilling of whys down until you hit bedrock, right? In all of these things, it's like, okay, economic populism is a great term, but what does it mean? Why is it important?
Right.
Well, because it produces the following. It produces stability and productivity, and it produces prosperity. Those are the reasons. Those are the things it does. So
And
why
it's
did
the
you do any?
truth. It's
Yeah,
the truth. People are feeling, and they're hurting economically, and we
right.
had been for a long time, and it's not until now that it's really going to sink in. So
Yeah,
that is
we're
something that
gonna
is valid.
we are gonna have we're gonna have shit hitting the fan here. I think,
I
for those of
know.
us that have been watching it, and it's not just that we're not doom scrolling or clickbaiting or
No.
anything like that. We don't do that because we don't need to.
Right.
The real bottom line is, we care about the people that were in, or that are here in our community today, and we really want to have a good conversation about what's happening in real terms, not just abstractions and whatever.
Right. Right.
So that's there. So I think with that, Lisa, I think we
Yeah.
have reached that magical time when I need to do one thing that you know
Yes.
about.
Yes,
You
exactly.
need
So we
to
could read the
help
comments
me
later
with it,
because,
with your end of
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, because I see that a lot of that you guys are having a great conversation in here. I've been looking down back and forth. I see Natasha joined. Hi, Natasha, Lisa Joy, Rousers here. Just some people that I noticed. Education is a lamp as I was looking down. So we're excited to look at your comments later. So we'll read through them. And yeah, we always like to do that afterwards. But
Right.
yeah, just to leave you with the thought, we're always trying to come up with solutions, even if right now it feels like you can't do anything actively. That
Hmm.
time is coming, I feel like, and you always have to start somewhere. And the starting point to me is always connecting and having
Right.
these conversations in the first place, which is
Yes.
why I even came to Substack, why I came looking for you guys and I found you, which I'm
Yes,
very happy about.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And by the way, if you are watching us tonight on YouTube, I've been so grateful for the growth in our audience on YouTube. It's just an awesome thing. We've gained a ton of viewers, and we welcome you. And we will be soon quickly integrating the ability to see your live comments as well as the folks who we're talking to on the streaming side of Substack. So we hope that you guys have a great rest of your Sunday night. I'm
Yes.
going to say, hey, thank you so much for coming and letting us in your home and in your lives. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to keep on doing it and putting our shoulder to the grindstone, I think is the saying, or something like that. So we love you. We're gonna keep doing it, and we want to make sure that you have a great day and a great week ahead. So we'll
Yes.
talk to you later, and have a
Thank
good
you
night.
guys.
Bye.